When I turned 17, everything changed. My father came home one night, drunk and furious. He had lost a valuable client and was looking for someone to take his anger out on. Gene was his target. "Where's that useless boy?" "Dad, calm down. Gene didn't do anything. Stay out of this, Corey." He stormed into Gene's room and started punching him. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped in, putting myself between Gene and our father. "If you want to hit someone, hit me." He punched me, but I was so angry that I shrugged it off and punched him back, knocking him out cold. Gene and I didn't waste any time. We grabbed whatever we could carry, took some money from our father's wallet, and left the house. Growing up in our house was like living in a horror film. My name is Corey, and I have a younger brother, Gene, who's 6 years younger than me. Our parents were the kind of wealthy people who believed that money made them superior to everyone else. But their wealth didn't translate into kindness or love. Instead, they were selfish, cruel, and abusive, both verbally and physically. I remember one time when I was about 10, I had spilled a glass of juice on the dining table. My mother's reaction was swift and brutal.
"Corey, you idiot, look what you've done. Do you know how expensive this table is?"
"I'm sorry, Mom. It was an accident."
"An accident? You're nothing but a burden. Go to your room and stay there until I say otherwise."
I spent the entire day locked in my room without food. This was just one of many punishments that Gene and I endured. My father wasn't any better. He was often away on business, but when he was home, his temper was explosive. One evening, when Gene was about 7, he accidentally broke one of our father's prized vases. Our father's rage was terrifying. "Gene, you little brat, what is wrong with you? I cared more about that vase than I do about you."
I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to. It was an accident.
"Sorry isn't enough. I'll make sure you never repeat that mistake again." He grabbed Gene by the arm and dragged him upstairs, throwing him into his room. I could hear Gene crying, and it broke my heart. I wanted nothing more than to run away, to start a life far from our parents. But I couldn't leave Gene behind. I had to protect him as much as I could. Our parents were wealthy but refused to pay for any assistance. For example, when the washing machines were broken, my brother and I were tasked with doing their laundry by hand instead of them replacing the machines. They claimed they didn't want to waste money because they were saving to buy a new house. We also cooked and mowed the lawn most of the time since our parents refused to hire a maid. My mom would often say,
"What's the point of having kids if they can't help us?"
"You would think that, because my parents were rich, we lived a comfortable life. But no, they were so cheap at times that it baffled me if we were even wealthy. When we ran out of toilet paper, my dad would say we could use water to clean ourselves instead, as they were saving for a bigger and nicer house. They wouldn't even give us money for transportation to school. We often walked to and from school because they refused to pay for the bus or provide us with fare. When I turned 17, everything changed. My father came home one night, drunk and furious. He had lost a valuable client and was looking for someone to take his anger out on. Gene was his target. "Where's that useless boy?" "Dad, calm down. Gene didn't do anything. Stay out of this, Corey." He stormed into Gene's room and started punching him. I couldn't take it anymore. I stepped in, putting myself between Gene and our father. "If you want to hit someone, hit me." He punched me, but I was so angry that I shrugged it off and punched him back, knocking him out cold. Gene and I didn't waste any time. We grabbed whatever we could carry, took some money from our father's wallet, and left the house. We found a cheap hotel room for the night, where we planned our next move. We knew we couldn't stay in the city. We decided to hitchhike across the country, aiming for the opposite coast. It was a tough journey, but we were determined to escape. During our hitchhiking journey across the country, we encountered many people. Some kind, others indifferent. One kind couple gave us a ride for nearly 100 miles and even bought us dinner. Their kindness reminded us that not everyone in the world was as cruel as our parents. When we finally reached the coast, we were exhausted but hopeful. The beaches became our refuge. During the day, we scoured the area for work, and at night, we would huddle together under a makeshift shelter, dreaming of a better future. The sea air, though harsh, felt like freedom. Our first jobs were humble: cleaning tables, washing dishes, and helping out at local shops. It wasn't much, but it was enough to get by. We saved every penny we could, determined to build a new life. After months of living on the beach and using rest areas to clean up, we managed to get part-time jobs. Slowly, we saved enough money to rent a small apartment. It wasn't much, but it was ours. We enrolled in school, determined to get an education and build a better future. Years passed, and we worked hard, taking on odd jobs and studying late into the night. Eventually, we earned degrees and secured better jobs. Life was finally looking up. Being the older brother, there were times when I acted like a parent, and there were others when we were just the best of friends. It was never easy, but we made it work. Jean, we're going to make it. We just have to keep pushing.
I believe you, Corey. We've come this far. There's no turning back now. Besides, if we stick together, we won't have to go back and deal with those two monsters ever again. They can't hurt us anymore.
But the past has a way of finding you, and one day, out of the blue, a private investigator contacted us. He had been hired by our parents, who had been searching for us for years. As it turned out, our father was gravely ill and was suffering from a rare disease. He needed a kidney transplant, and we were his last hope. I've been looking for you two for years. Your parents are desperate to find you, and your father's condition is worsening. The two of you are their last hope. Oh yay? What makes them think that we'll come crawling back to them after all these years? Well, they are offering several thousands of dollars if you will return with me. Jean, what do you think?
I don't know, Corey. They've never cared about us before, so it only makes sense that they contact us once they need something from us. I have no doubt in my mind that the money offer is real at the very least.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, we'll return with you. Despite our skepticism, we agreed to return and see if there was a chance that they didn't only just want us for a selfish reason. The reunion was tense. Our parents were ecstatic to see us, but their motives were clear. They needed us to save our father's life.
We've been looking for you for so long. We're so happy you're here.
Really? You're happy to see us?
Well, of course, your father needs a kidney. You are here to help him after all, right?
Yeah. I guess we'll help. And of course we need to see this money that you promised us, but that isn't enough. We also have some conditions that we need you to agree to, or else we are just walking away. We know that when we ran away, you took us out of your wills. If you want a kidney, we want to be reinstated into the will, with a clause that guarantees us a large sum of money if anything happens to either of you. And I'll be having my lawyer review it, so don't try any funny business with it. Fine. Are you serious? Fine. Just save my life. I didn't trust them, so I had my lawyer review the new will. Once everything was confirmed, I agreed to the surgery. But I had a plan. It wasn't easy to arrange, but I hired someone to ensure that the kidney would be rejected. Honestly, it was a bit scary how easy it was to find a hitman, and it didn't even cost that much for his services. During the surgery, the hitman, who was dressed as a nurse, injected a combination of viruses and bacteria into the kidney as it was being delivered to my father. A few days later, my father's body rejected it, and his condition worsened. Desperate, he demanded a kidney from Jean, but before anything could be arranged, he passed away. The last few hours of his life were filled with pain, and I would be lying if knowing that didn't make me a little happy. And we were part of his will and fortune. Our mother was devastated. She fell apart emotionally, leaving us as the de facto powers of attorney. She was so distraught that she was nearly catatonic and needed assistance to function. Seeing this, we took advantage of the situation and we placed her in an old folks' home and took control of the family estate. Years passed, and our mother snapped out of her grief-stricken state and eventually realized what had happened. She tried to change the will, but we convinced her doctors and lawyers that she was mentally unfit. And since she was deemed not to be sound of mind, she couldn't check herself out of the old folks' home, nor could she change her will. When she passed away, we inherited everything. Jean and I finally felt free. We celebrated the end of our parents' reign of terror and used our inheritance to start a business together. It wasn't easy, but we thrived, finding happiness and success. We had survived and built a life despite our terrible upbringing, and for that, we were proud. Looking back, those years after our escape were some of the hardest, yet most formative of our lives. The initial days were filled with uncertainty and fear. We often questioned if leaving was the right decision, but the answer was always yes. We had no other choice but to survive. Thanks for watching.